The psychosis started when I was around 18. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, so like shadows, and I would be like, why isn't nobody reacting to this? Like, am I the only one seeing this?
In grade 11, I started doing a lot of street drugs. One of the first things I started to notice was paranoia. I was having like visual hallucinations a lot. At first, I was experiencing drug-induced psychosis because I was doing drugs. When I got off all of the street drugs, the symptoms persisted.
For me, it first started happening at like prom night when I was graduating. So I would be, smoking weed as an example and drinking. And I would start having a lot of experiences that, would not normally go with that. So for example, I was in the tent with my girlfriend and I heard like a bunch of people all around yelling and stuff. And I went outside and no one was there. It's a paranoid delusion as far as, auditory hallucinations, and it's usually pretty negative.
As I was going through high school, maybe grade 10, things were a bit off, and then I would find myself like talking to nobody. And after a while, I identified that there was very much so like one specific voice that I spoke to quite often and spoke to me like almost constantly. It was like speaking to a Russian person, like it had a different accent than I did.
My experiences spiraled into something a lot worse, and I started to hear voices. So on the left side, I heard a very commanding, destructive male voice that I believe was the devil. On the right side, I heard a very calming, soothing female voice that I believe was the Virgin Mary. So when I was sick, when I was in the height of my illness, I was hearing these voices all day long, bombarding my head all day long. At first would reply in my mind to them. I would talk back to them. And then I would reply out loud in a talking tone. And then when I was at my sickest, I would yell back at the voices.
In terms of like the voices that I would hear, it would all be very negative. He's a loser, no one likes him, he's not going anywhere, he has no friends, stuff like that. Imagine it would be someone in another room and I would hear them talking about me and I would go out there and no one was there. And then it started happening at school. I thought the whole school was against me. Thought it was a whole conspiracy. It wasn't happening, but that was the paranoia.
The voice got more negative, and then as I realized, like I didn't enjoy the things that I was hearing. It would say mean things about me, like like I was overweight, and like this person that I couldn't see was telling me that everyone else thought I was fat. It really just was this big mystery, like is this what everyone goes through? I don't think so, especially with paranoid schizophrenia. Like you do become paranoid, and these ideas that like can't be real become very real.
My illness is very religious. I grew my hair long, I grew a long beard. So I thought that was a coincidence that I looked like Jesus Christ, but a little later on I started to believe I actually was Jesus Christ. And when I was in the height of my illness, you couldn't make me believe that this is like a mental illness, a mental health issue, schizophrenia. Because it was so real to me, right? It was so real.
It got to the point where it had been a week of not really sleeping well because I wouldn't hear things being said at night, of being worried about what everyone was saying. And I was looking out the window and I heard the people downstairs saying, "Oh, he's gonna jump out the window." And I wasn't gonna do that, but that's what I heard them saying. So the next day I was having a pretty bad day and I went to the doctor and I kind of told them that some of the stuff was happening. So they did have police come pick me up. I think they were concerned that I might hurt myself based off what I said, and they took me to a mental ward.
I couldn't hold it together anymore, so from the outside people could see what was going on finally after like a long time. So what had to happen was my dad brought over a friend of his who was a GP. He sat with me for a bit and said to my folks, yeah, he's probably got schizophrenia. He filled out a Form 1, which is a legal document and the authorization was granted for me to be apprehended and brought to hospital. The police came by my house one day, put me in handcuffs, put me in the back of the cruiser, and brought me to the mental hospital. I spent 3 months on the unit while they tried medications on me.
I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't. The voices were so horrible, telling me to hurt myself. And it came to a point where I was lying in bed and I said, "Mom, you need to take me to the hospital. I'm gonna cut my arm off if you don't take me." And because I had this recurring vision of just chopping my arm off. And she had to hold on to me and take me to the hospital. My dad came off of work to come. And I was just weeping at the hospital, and they said she's having a psychotic episode.
I think I just really wasn't coping well, and I wasn't talking about what was affecting me, and I knew I couldn't keep it a secret anymore, and I went home and I told my parents, and they took me to the hospital like right away. And I was committed. I was put into the hospital for, I was there for 2 weeks.
I didn't think I had a mental health issue. Therefore, I didn't believe I needed to get help. And it wasn't until I got on the right antipsychotic and the voices went away. That's how I knew I had schizophrenia, because when I went on the antipsychotic, the voices went away. When those voices went away and I gained insight, where you can actually admit or believe that you have a mental illness or a mental health issue, and then entered into recovery, moving on from like the worst of schizophrenia.
The medication helped a lot. Me understanding that there was actually something wrong and that the voices aren't being said was very helpful. I had supportive friends and family that were there.
My mother was really, really good. She went out of her way to do a lot of research about it. She had her own mental health issues, and we kind of worked together to get better.
My family has been the most amazing, but it did take a little bit of time for them to realize, okay, this is gonna happen, and it's a lifetime thing, and how are we gonna deal with it as a family? Because it's not just me, it's the whole family.
My parents and my sister were always there for me. I think that without the family support, I never would have gotten through it.
I wasn't cured when I left the hospital. I'm not cured today. My life just works better today because I have tools to work with myself and with the people in my life to make sure that I'm doing the best I can do.
And I think a big thing about schizophrenia is that it's ongoing management. There isn't a complete cure for it. There's always going to be some symptoms. It's one of those things where you kind of learn to manage it over time. It's been 15 years now, and it's much easier to do than it was back then. So it's, still learning, still taking medication every day, which is another big thing. Also, healthy lifestyle as far as eating healthy, going to the gym. I do a lot of meditation now as well. My symptoms tend to be better.
Well, I still hear voices from time to time, and they're so fleeting, few and far between, that that doesn't bother me much. I mean, I still deal with, like suicidal ideation, but that's only temporary, and I get back to myself, so.
So I still have weird thoughts. I think, can that person read my mind? And I do still think that. And then I have to stop myself and rationalize, well, probably not. And even if they can, what can I do about it? And then within the hour, it doesn't bother me.
Of course, medication has been a really big part of it for me because of the nature of the illness. What I've learned from CBT is to kind of bring back the focus to the present moment. Radical acceptance, so we're accepting your reality and not trying to change what's happening to you, just accepting it.
To be well, anybody to be well has to be very balanced. And that's the same when you have schizophrenia. You just maybe add medication, right?
Like, and I get that there's like a big misunderstanding about what being schizophrenic even is, or it just sounds like a dirty word, like, but it's not.
People are coming out and speaking about depression and anxiety and bipolar and OCD, but people aren't really talking about schizophrenia yet. It needs to be talked about more. And there needs to be more people with schizophrenia who are well enough to educate other people about what it could be, what it, you know, how people can get over it and be treated and move on with their lives. And if I didn't tell you I had schizophrenia, would you have been able to guess?
You shouldn't limit your goals and aspirations just because you're schizophrenic. I'm going to go to school and graduate, I'm going to be fine. There's lots of people out there who have schizophrenia that are successful, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily like admitting it because there is the stigma that goes along with it.
I have been that person crying out in the middle of the street, you know? And that doesn't mean we're gonna harm you, and it doesn't mean we're actually more likely to be harmed than to harm people. Statistics show. Just maybe educate yourself a little bit if you find yourself in a situation where you're judgmental about it.
There's a lot to look forward to because your life doesn't end when you get a diagnosis. Like, it feels like it does, but it doesn't. And, you know, you can try again tomorrow and then it gets better, and you try again and it gets even better, you know.